As we begin 2024, the situation in Ukraine remains very serious. The conflict, which has been ongoing for years, shows no signs of abating. The resilience of the Ukrainian people is evident, but the toll on the nation is immense. The war continues, and Russia is strengthening its control over the areas it occupies. Despite international sanctions and condemnation, Russian forces remain entrenched, making the prospect of liberation increasingly challenging. Hopes for a quick end to the conflict are fading. The destruction is widespread, and the human cost is staggering. Families are torn apart, and communities are left in ruins. Around the world, countries are struggling with the war's wide-ranging effects. Economies are strained, and the humanitarian crisis is deepening. Inflation and shortages are becoming the new norm in many regions. One thing is certain, the fight for Ukraine's freedom is far from over. The spirit of defiance and determination among the Ukrainian people remains unbroken, as they continue to stand up against the aggressors. This conflict has become a complicated mix of military actions, political disagreements, and humanitarian disasters. The international community is deeply involved, yet a resolution seems distant. The whole world is watching, and what happens next is incredibly important. The decisions made in the coming months will have far-reaching consequences for global stability and peace. The outcome will not only determine Ukraine's future, but also the future of Europe and the entire world. The stakes have never been higher, and the international community must navigate this crisis with care and resolve. We are receiving troubling reports from the front lines. The situation is becoming increasingly dire as new information comes to light. The United States is accusing Russia of using a dangerous military tactic called human wave attacks. This controversial strategy has sparked international outrage and concern. This strategy involves sending large numbers of soldiers, many of whom are North Korean, into direct attacks, leading to very high casualty rates. The sheer scale of these assaults is staggering and deeply troubling. This tactic has been compared to brutal methods used in past wars, drawing parallels to some of the most harrowing moments in military history. The involvement of North Korean troops raises concerns about Russia's allies and suggests that they may be getting desperate. This alliance complicates the geopolitical landscape even further. It also shows how little the Kremlin values human life, willing to sacrifice countless soldiers for their strategic goals. The human cost of this conflict is becoming increasingly apparent. If these accusations are true, it paints a very dark picture of where this conflict is heading. The international community must take notice and respond to these alarming developments. Amidst all the bad news, there is a glimmer of hope for Ukraine. The country has received its first shipment of liquefied natural gas from the United States. This shipment, a total of 100 million cubic meters, is a big step towards Ukraine becoming free from its reliance on Russia for energy. This development weakens Russia's control over Ukraine through energy supplies. It also shows the West's commitment to helping Ukraine stay strong. This shipment arrives as Ukraine has decided not to renew a gas agreement with Russia. This action signals Ukraine's determination to break free from Moscow's control. In Moscow, an air of suspicion hangs over the city. The streets are filled with people going about their daily lives, but there's an underlying tension that is palpable. Dark clouds loom over the skyline, mirroring the uncertainty that grips the nation. Russia's Federal Security Service, or FSB, says it stopped a Ukrainian plan to kill a well-known pro-war blogger and military officer. The FSB claims to have thwarted a significant threat, but the details remain murky, leaving many to question the veracity of these allegations. The details are still unclear, and Ukraine hasn't responded to these claims yet. The lack of transparency fuels speculation and doubt among the public, as they try to piece together the truth from fragmented information. Meanwhile, the Kremlin continues to silence anyone who disagrees with the war. Protests are swiftly quashed, and dissenting voices are muted, creating an atmosphere of fear and repression. Russian singer Eduard Sharlot has been sentenced to 5.5 years in prison for speaking out against the war. What was his crime? He burned his passport, a symbolic act of defiance, and used his platform to voice his opposition. He criticized the war online, using social media to reach a wider audience. His posts resonated with many, but also drew the ire of the authorities, and nailed a picture of Patriarch Kirill, a strong supporter of the war, to a cross. This act was seen as a direct challenge to the religious and political establishment. His case shows the oppressive climate in Russia where any opposition to the war is met with swift and severe punishment. The government's heavy-handed approach serves as a stark warning to others who might consider speaking out.